Good morning, friends. It's Mary from Rocky Mountain Gardens. Welcome to my channel. And today I am joining my friend Heidi Sonbol, who hosts every month a DIY sort of collaboration. And this month it is, you can do any theme you want or any projects that you would like to do. So I have two to share with you. One is I'm going to take this inexpensive tray. It's a sort of a semi-wood tray, painted white. I love it. And I'm going to be stenciling on it, a farmhouse looking stencil. So I think you'll really like this. And if you've never done stenciling before, give this a go. Watch my video and you'll see it's not difficult, and you can start doing some projects with stenciling. Now, number two is an old sign that I've had around my house for quite a long time, and I just love the way it looks and what it says. The Garden Cafe, open daily. And as you know, if you follow my channel, I'm a gardener, so I want to start using this again out on my front porch because it has gotten quite faded over the years. So I'm going to try to spruce it up today, and I'd like to take you along as we get started on these crafts. So guys, I'm going to start on my sign that is all faded that I showed you, and see if I can't get this looking fantastic again. And I always get anxious when I'm doing something like this because you don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to take my time and walk you through the parts that I'm doing. When I do these florals right here in this part of the sign, I'm going to be using some acrylic paints and perhaps even a little chalk paint. I'm not quite sure yet. I have to do some testing to see what works best on this sign because it is a metal sign and very slick, and so I'm a little concerned about the paint smearing and sticking on. But I'm going to be starting with these chalk pens that I had bought a while back at Hobby Lobby. One is more pointy and the other one has one of those chip points that allows you to get a more straight, hopefully a more straight line. And I'm going to start up here with the Garden Cafe. And I know this is upside down for you guys. Sorry, but it's the only way I could have done it with, to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm shaking up the pens, and then you always begin by pressing the pen down so you get a little dot of the chalk paint and get it started. Now I'm going to start with the word "the" right here, and you can follow along and we'll see how I do. Coloring these letters with the chalk paint turned out to be much easier than I thought it was going to be. It was sort of like just coloring in a coloring book, coloring the spaces carefully and taking my time. I did learn through experience on this that chalk paint, once it's dried, is difficult to remove. So I suggest, if you're trying a project like this, remember that about the chalk paint and be careful with it. But it, as I said, was not difficult and turned out so pretty. Guys, I have a change of plans. I finished the chalk painting of the letters and they look great. But when I started painting on this metal, the acrylic paint was not adhering very well and I got a little nervous. And then I had a brainstorm. I remembered that I had some of these vintage looking flowers that are from my scrapbooking stash. So I went upstairs and got them, and I arranged them here, as you can see, to cover the existing painting of flowers that's on the sign. Now, because this sign is going to be in under a covered porch, I don't have to worry about it so much being affected by the weather. So here I wanted to show you a trick I learned from my scrapbooking projects. I'm using this VersaFine stamp pad, which is black, and I'm taking each of my leaves and flowers and I am sponging the edges, and that is really great to cover up any white that is showing on the edges, and also it gives some dimension to your flowers and leaves and really helps it to look more professional. My plan is to go ahead and glue these down with Mod Podge, and I'm going to use a matte Mod Podge. I don't want a shiny look. I'm going to go ahead and remove these flowers and get started on adhering them with that glue, the Mod Podge, and then we'll finish up. Here is the 1/2 inch wide chip brush that I'm going to be using for applying the Mod Podge. Here you can see that I have laid out my design partially, and just a tip, when you're working on a project like this with lots of pieces, I actually took a photograph with my phone of my design that you saw earlier in the video so that I could refer to it as I was taking the pieces off and putting on the Mod Podge and then placing them, because of course I knew I would be forgetful about what went where on the project, and I had that photograph to refer to. Like I said, it was very helpful in placing each of the flowers and the leaves to get that look I had designed earlier. It was great. And after making sure I had the backs of each of the flowers and leaves fully covered with Mod Podge, at the end you can see here I am covering the entire piece with Mod Podge to make sure each edge of each flower and leaf was glued down well. All right, friends, here's my finished sign, and my next step will be to go outdoors and spray with this Krylon clear satin poly finish for it to give it, protection from the outdoors. And then we'll take a look at how my two projects look at my home. Let's start project number 2 now. So here is my little wooden tray painted white that I got from the Target dollar spot, like I said, and it cost $5. I've had this for about a year, and this is the stencil I plan to use. I bought this at not Hobby Lobby, at Walmart, and it was very inexpensive, $3. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out and place it in my tray. Here it is. I'm just going to place it in the tray, and then I want to center it. Doesn't have to be precisely perfect, but fairly perfect. Fairly eyeballed in the center. And then I have my painter's tape that I'm going to attach it to the tray with. And if you've not done stenciling before, this is not difficult. I would say the biggest problem that most people have with stenciling is that they glob on too much paint and it leaks under the stencil and kind of spreads out and blurs your image. So it's better to go with less paint than too much. That's my biggest tip for you all. After I get this taped on, I'm going to go ahead and get out my black paint and get started on the actual stenciling. And I'm going to be using these little daubers. This package says foam stippler set, and you can find them often at Walmart. I think when they're packaged there, they are called spouncers, because when you're stenciling, you're bouncing or pouncing up and down, straight up and down, and you want your applicator to be flat, to have this flat surface. So when you're pouncing on your stencil, you're getting even coverage and with this flat sponge. So let's get started. As I begin stenciling here, you will notice that I dab my spouncer into the paint and then dab off on my paper plate to make sure I'm not applying too much thickly on the stencil to avoid that bleed through that I mentioned earlier. Now it looks like I'm working really fast since I've speeded up the video, but actually I took my time and worked slowly on each section to make sure it was covered. Guys, you can see how quick and easy that stenciling was. And if you do not own either a Cricut or any of those other cutting machines that lots of people and I have watched them do this on YouTube on different videos using that vinyl that you cut out, and then you can just attach it to whatever you're making, a sign or whatever. And that's great because you can create your own design. But if you don't own one of those cutting machines, this is a fantastic way to get that look. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see it's not exactly perfectly stenciled, but I kind of like that look because it makes it look a little more aged and more farmy. Next, I'm going to use this Krylon spray to protect my stencil, and this is a satin clear finish. And I'm going to give it one coat all around and then at least a second coat to cover the stencil itself, maybe 3, because I do want those layers of protection for my design. So guys, this is something we can all do, and as you can see, it was inexpensive. $3 for the stencil. I already had the paints and the spouncers, and then $5 for this tray. Not bad. $8 for a really cute farmhouse looking tray. Now for a look at my 2 finished projects. I wanted to say goodbye to everybody, and I also wanted to remind you that down below in my description box there's going to be a link to the playlist for all these wonderful DIYs that will be done by other YouTubers participating in Heidi's really fun DIY collaboration. So check out the description box and that link to see lots of more DIY ideas. Enjoy, everyone!